I mean, you've got to know these kinds of inversions to make your rhythm guitar playing more interesting, more varied, and even just to be able to quickly learn new songs that have these common inversions. Let's take a song like Crazy Train. Ozzy Osbourne passed away this week, rest in peace. Let's look at this riff. It's not the riff that you might be thinking of, but my favorite riff, of course it was written by Randy Rhoades, my favorite riff is the second one in the song, and that's the one that has these inversions. It looks like this. If I just show you the inversions, and you know, a lot of people will learn these songs just by looking at the tabs and looking at them as numbers. You know, they might be thinking, oh, well, this is 7/6/5. But I mean, 7/6/5, that's not really a chord. We're not really thinking what the chord actually is when we play a guitar that way. And you might be able to say, well, I know how to play the song Crazy Train. Okay, but there's another level, and it means that you won't ever be able to use these types of chords and these inversions in your own playing, whether or not you're improvising or jamming with friends or writing your own songs or whatever situation you're in. If we understand these inversions, we can use them almost anywhere, right? So it's not just 7/6/5 with a 0 on the bottom, that A. It's an A chord, right? What does it come from? It comes from this big standard A bar chord. That's what it is. It's an A chord. We can see that those fingers fit in that bar chord. And I mean, a good tip off is that there's the open A chord underneath, or the open A string underneath there, right? And what's the next one? The shape is different, right? This is, you could say, 6/5/4. Okay. But 6/5/4 doesn't tell us what the chord is. It's an inversion, and in this case, it's an E chord. We'll look into these more in detail later so you can figure them out yourself, but the next one is a D chord, right? And then an A chord. Well, that one is just a cowboy A, so you probably do know that one. But you put them all together, it's a killer line. Now think about it. If Randy Rhoades had have just played these chords in their standard form, say, so what are they, right? They're A, E, D, A. If he had just played A, E, D, A, I mean, yeah, that also sounds good. It might be a kind of an AC/DC thing. Though I think AC/DC would be more like a Mixolydian thing. They love their Mixolydian. It would be more like something like that. But just sticking with these chords, we could just play A, E, D, A, sure. But you can see how different it sounds. It doesn't have this descending, connecting line that we get when we have A, E/G sharp. That's what that's called, right? And why is it called E/G sharp? The slash just means that it's an E chord. The first part just tells us what the chord is. And the note that's after the slash is telling us to put that note as the lowest pitch. And in fact, we have this note here, this G sharp, that's the lowest pitch of that chord. Now you could say in this particular case, we have this A, open A string ringing as well. But for our purposes here, we're just looking at these inverted triads. So this one would be what? It's basically like a cowboy D chord, right? But this is the lowest pitch now. So what would it be called? It would be called D/F sharp, because F sharp is the lowest pitch. And then that's A. So it's A, E/G sharp, D/F sharp, A. And listen to how cool that is, how it flows downwards like that. It's very different than jumping around in a kind of AC/DC way. Now it's descending. It has more flow. I'm not saying one is better than the other, they're just different, and we want to be able to be good at both of them, right? So that we can use these ideas when we're playing or jamming with our friends or writing our own songs or whatever. But also, when we come across them in tabs and we see them in songs or even hear them, then we've already played them, we already know them, we already understand them. We can learn the song really easily. So let's just talk a little more about these inversions and how they work. Let's take a simpler example, okay? I'm gonna give you, let's change keys. Let's change the key of D. It's gonna be D, A, B minor, G. And that sounds nice, but it does kind of jump around a bit. What if I wanted just a little bit of that descending line, that little bit of that connection between, say, even just the first two chords? I could take this A, and I could make an inversion of it. So what could I do is I could take this C sharp, check that out. Now this would be called an A/C sharp chord, right? Because it's an A chord, but I've got C sharp in the bottom. So A/C sharp. So what's the advantage of that is basically that if I've got D is the bottom of D, that note we're going to hear is now falling to that half step movement. Rather than hearing a D fall all the way to an A way down there, now we hear a D fall a half step to just there, only that little bit. And we hear that flow. What was the next chord? It was B minor, right? So that's going to flow a whole step down, but it still sounds pretty good. And then a G. So now I've taken this sequence that sounded like this before. That's also cool. You could say the kind of contour of that is like a higher chord going down to an A, going up a little bit to a B minor, going down to a G. So it's kind of like do, 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 like that. But this one now just flows smoothly downwards, right? It sounds like... That sounds pretty good. And we're using this extremely common inversion. We would say that this is the first inversion of A. The names don't matter too much, but basically what we've got is we've got the third of the we've got the third on the bottom of the chord now. Normally we would have the root on the bottom, right? We would have A on the bottom. Now we've got C sharp on the bottom. Because an A chord is three notes essentially, right? Root, third, fifth. So now instead of having root on the bottom, we've got the third on the bottom. And in this case, in the case of A, it's a C sharp. So we got C sharp on the bottom. But that chord, we see this chord in all kinds of songs. It's in tons of songs. We might say, let's take the first chord and take an inversion of that. There's a D/, what would that be? What's that note there? It's an F sharp, so it's a D/F sharp. So let's say I had a song that just had a whole bunch of D. Maybe it was a bit boring, right? Now I've got, it almost sounds like a chord change, and it's not. It's still the same chord. It's still a D. It still has the same collection of notes, as people like to say. It still has the notes D, F sharp, A, which are the notes of a D chord. D, F sharp, A, right? D, F sharp, A, but F sharp on the bottom. D, F sharp, A, D, F sharp, A, but F sharp on the bottom. And by doing that, we can get these cool... It does sound good, doesn't it? This kind of descending movement. It's right for the right kind of song. And it might not be right for all songs. There are great examples of songs. For example, a really good one is Hey Jude. The ending part of Hey Jude, the na 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 part, that does the opposite of this. What it does, a different key, is it's F chord and then E flat. Now we would think F chord to E flat, they could have gone like this. Those two chords are actually quite close together, right? There's an F, there's an E flat. They're only 2 frets apart. But what they do, now I'm gonna say this is more of a piano-based thing, I think, in the song. Or I guess they're all playing this, I don't know. But what they're doing is they're playing F down low, and then they're going up high to the E flat. So F down here, and then B flat, and then F. So you get that movement, it's like... Now, in that case, the big jump is really cool. There's no inversions there. We don't need an inversion because in that case, it's like they were purposefully going for this big dramatic jump. Sometimes we want that, but sometimes we don't. Sometimes we want something more slinky or... Rhoades kind of riff. You can steal these chords. You don't have to play it the same way that he did. I mean, these chords are so pretty. It's a song in itself, you know? Okay, so now let's take that chord progression, the other one, the one that goes D, A/C sharp, B minor, and G. And as a really good exercise, we're going to do more of this on Patreon, but I'll give you a little taste of it here. We're going to play the scale for each chord. This is such a great exercise if you want to get good at soloing. So let's just do a little bit of it here. I'll show you what I mean. D is the first chord, right? Now, all these chords are in the key of D, so I could just play D major pentatonic the whole way, right? I could say, easy shape major pentatonic. Here's a D way up here at the 10th fret. I could play easy shape, and that'll work over all the chords. Or I could work my brain a little harder and use a scale for each chord. It's not as hard as it seems, and it can create really cool melodies. It's a great way of being able to play the changes, as they say, right? To play over the chords. So we said the first chord was a D. Well, let's think we could play D major pentatonic. Of course we can. So I'm just going to take my pinky here on this D, and I'm going to play D major pentatonic. That happens to be, I call it shape 4 funny B. And then play the chord. To recognize each one, we're going to play the chord to kind of build the sound of it in your ear, right? Now I'm going to play the A/C sharp. I could continue to play D major pentatonic, but look at the problem if I play D major pentatonic. It's not really a problem, but it's like a disappointment. Is D major pentatonic, it didn't have this C sharp note in it. It's like disappointing. This C sharp is so cool in this chord. I want that C sharp. But you know what does have that note is A major pentatonic. Well, it's an A chord, so I'm going to play A major pentatonic, right? It doesn't take that much thinking, really. A major chord, so A major pentatonic. But I do have to use, again, my brain a little bit, and I got to know where is A major pentatonic around here. Well, there's an A right there, so I'm just going to play A major pentatonic. It's easy shape, I call it. Right? There's the A, or A/C sharp, whatever, same difference. So we're going to do this for each of the chords, but the exercise is essentially D, and then you play D major pentatonic. A/C sharp, and then A major pentatonic. You can hear how much it sounds like the chord now, right? B minor is the next chord. And then I gotta think, what's B minor pentatonic right there? Is it B minor chord? Is B minor pentatonic? Well, it's easy. Here's my root. So here's B minor pentatonic. And then, if you've done the kind of theory that we do on our Patreon, you'll have that little bell go off in your head that goes, oh, wait a second, that's the same as D major pentatonic, darn it. That is also shape 4 funny B, because they are relative major minor, first finger pinky rule, all that stuff. And then what's the last chord is G. Okay, there's G, so it's a G major chord, so therefore G major pentatonic. That's also easy shape in open position, that would be, right? So that's right here. That's one of the first scales that we all learn. There we go. So let's do them all. D, A/C sharp, B minor, and G. So hit the chord first, D, A/C sharp, B minor, and G. You can really hear now how I'm just playing the scale. I'm not even playing a lick, right? On our Patreon, we're going to do some licks for each of those. But just playing the scale itself, you can hear how much it's highlighting the notes of each of those chords. Now, tons of famous solos don't necessarily do that, and some tons of great solos do as well. So again, we want to be able to do that. Sometimes it really helps us to stop sounding like we're just noodling around, like we're just meandering. If we're thinking about the chords underneath, then we can think about strategies like this one that we can do to play over the changes so that our soloing or improvising or writing melodies or whatever it is we're doing sounds like the chord, and it's much more melodic. It tends to be much more interesting sounding, to my ear anyway. And it's not that hard. Major chord, major pentatonic, minor chord, minor pentatonic. It's gonna work, I think, almost every time. I've yet to find a situation in which it didn't work for me yet anyway, but if you have, I don't know, let me know in the comments. Okay, so last thing. We're gonna look at some more challenging ways to play these inversions, but especially as triads. So we'll have those tabs on our Patreon, but if you're looking for more stuff on triads to get ready for that, we've got this video right here on this channel. So thanks a lot for watching. My name is Blue Morris. I teach guitar lessons right here in Vancouver and on YouTube and Patreon. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.